Hello everyone. I am starting my recap of the WTC. This first video will be about my list. Later on will be a recap of the games that I played. So I'll go through everything for you guys. Of course I will. Um, Remember one thing. In a minute, I'm going to show you my list, and this is going to be as cheesy as I can possibly make it. It's not going to be a list that many people will find fun. It's not a list that's designed to be played where the opponent is supposed to think that that list is fun. I hope my opponents don't dislike me at the table. I try not to be a bastard about winning or whatever, but the list is designed just for the game. It's designed to win. Um, so I hope you'll have that in mind. And if you dislike the list, fair enough. It's what you can build with the WTC format. Um, I came eighth overall, so I'm in the top 10. I am now undefeated for more than a year. Last time I lost a competitive game was at the WTC to one of the Spanish team, who are the world champions now. Um, I played draws against some of the best players in the world. I drew against Manuel, who was a former world champion. He was number one after Poland, and he's now again the best placed player. I played a draw against him, and I played a draw against Achilles, who is possibly even better than Manuel actually as a player. So I think I did well, and I don't think it's just the list. Although of course the list is something is off, isn't it, with my headset? Anyways, of course the list is a little bit. It is a strong list, but however, I'll also suggest that it's a list that takes some getting used to. It's not a list you can just pick up. It's not a net list as such. It's not a list you can pick up and then play and then do well with. You're going to have to train with it. Um, and I know this because one of the Danish players actually had to switch to Brits, which is my thing, right? And I sort of trained him up, and it did take a little bit of training. The first few games, he absolutely got trounced, but at the WTC, he did quite well, and I'm very chuffed about that. So, let us go and see what it was that I brought, and I will talk you through everything and the thought process about why I brought that. So, here is my list. 1,000 points. I made sure to use every single point I could. Sorry, is that running? I'm just going to need to check if my camera's running. It did something weird. Right, it is. Okay, so I made sure to use every single point I had. For the WTC, I don't think you can waste points. You really need to think about what you're doing because you're gonna want every competitive advantage you can get for those kinds of games where you bring your A game, right? Um, the WTC is not. It's not an it's not a whacker tournament. It's not a tournament where you don't have fun, where you don't like people, but it is a tournament where you bring your A game, where everybody enjoys that, um, or most people enjoy it, anyways. My order dice count was 13 order dice, which some people may find a little low. It was in the low end of the spectrum of what was brought competitively for that event. Go and watch my video on the meta of that event, and I'm also going to do a recap video of that. The thought process here was I wanted to make sure that every order dice I had a purpose and could survive, and I knew how to play it. And I was bringing a British tank platoon, so if I had run, I could build this to 15 order dice, but then I would have taken trucks, and those trucks would have been inexperienced and they would not have been armed, so they would not have been useful. They would have been useless order dice stuff that couldn't actually influence the game in any way. So I made sure that all my order dice counted for something, which was actually turned out really nicely. For the event itself, taking a tank platoon was a little bit of a risk, but we all took it in the Danish team. because you can do so much more damage with a tank platoon. But since the event, the WTC had ruled that tanks and mounted infantry and transport vehicles couldn't contest or hold objectives, I knew that I was going to use these tanks to kill enemy units, and that was their only purpose. Um, so of course I brought stewards. I brought 3 stewards. I had the command armored platoon commander plus network, so I had a pretty substantial morale bonus. It didn't come up that many times, although it did like 1 or 2 times. Um, so I had 3 of those stewards with the LMGs, the darker version, as I term it. Um, they were very, very useful, and I did lose some stewards over the course of the tournament. Um, I think the one game where I lost most stewards was against Achilles. He killed 2 of my stewards using Panzerfaust from outflank. I'm still sore about that because I expected him to come on. I knew he was going to come on. I was on ambush, and I couldn't stop him, and he killed me. Um, so I lost 2 stewards in that game, but overall the stewards performed really well. They were very effective, and they were really good at getting that lucky 7 at times, and 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 reaching out and killing stuff on the enemy's back lines. So really useful tool. Just don't expect it to work miracles because they will get killed. I mean, I lost an enemy steward to long range fire by an enemy steward. Manuel, he drove one of his stewards onto the table. He took a pot shot. He needed a 5. He got it. He had a 3 plus because long range light anti tank gun. He got that and he blew up my steward. What are you going to do? It happens, right? Stewards are very, very vulnerable. Then I brought 2 British Airborne Recce Jeeps. These were not as useful as the rest, but they were very good small units that could really annoy the enemy. I may at some point change these out and get myself some motorcycles instead with machine gun sidecar. Um, but as is, they are very, very useful in most games. At the WTC, they were less useful in some respects, maybe because of the amount of terrain of some of the tables that I played on. On some of them, there was a lot of line of sight blocking terrain, and some of them there was not so much. So, and both things are not that great for Jeeps, but they were useful overall, and I would definitely bring them again. Um, just maybe change one of them. I don't know. Maybe, you know. They're mostly there to be an annoyance and to deliver a few pins, maybe a few casualties over time, whittle down enemy units. And then my Gurkha sections, I had 3 of these. I could have run them para-Gurkhas, but I felt like I did not need that because of the national special rule that I was running. I was running Indians, which have unsurpassed bravery. Unsurpassed bravery means that when you take a test where you might lose your unit, you can re-roll that test, and it only came up once. And I guess I have trained a lot with these Gurkhas. I know how to avoid enemy flamethrowers by now, which is their the main threat to the Gurkha sections. So I think I lost a single unit of Gurkhas during the whole tournament to a flamethrower. That was it. Um, and I don't think I lost. Yeah, I lost 1 unit of Gurkhas completely. So 2 units of Gurkhas died during the tournament. In all my games, 6 games of 3 units. So they did well. I didn't charge as much as I would have liked because I was running Indians. So um, because I was running Indians, I didn't have Up and Adam, but I felt like I needed the extra free unit because my tanks couldn't contest. So I needed more infantry, and this sort of made up for the lacks that you do have in tank platoons. Um, so that was why I was running them like this. Would I change it next time? I think I might. I had like four four times where I would want to have had a charge where I failed that charge because of pins. So and I had only one game where the Indians could have been key, but they actually were killed just the same, and didn't really affect the outcome in the end because they died. So they were useful to have, no doubt about it. They were nice to have, but they were not absolutely needed. I may change that going forward. Then I had the free artillery observer. This combo I think is way overpowered and should not be allowed. I'm not allowing it at my own tournaments, but having 2 free units is just that's 200 extra points I'm getting for the Brits here, which already have some pretty nice special rules, some pretty nice units. You shouldn't do this. I think it's too much. But it was ruled that that was the case, and so of course I bring it. The artillery observer was not key in any of the games. It wasn't absolutely necessary, but it did deliver some nice pins at times, which made me more able to push forward. I always try to make sure that if I have an enemy coming at me, if he clumps up, that is where I put my artillery bombardment. Or if I want to assault a part of his line, then I will put my artillery bombardment where I want to assault, and then push towards that as soon as it comes down, because that will be pinned. Um, I had a few points left over, and I bought a boys anti-tank rifle team. This did not really kill anything during the whole weekend, but it did survive quite a lot, and as such was quite useful. It was a little bit of a threat, which my enemy had to deal with, and that was nice. There was one game against Achilles where that boys anti-tank rifle team held off his Panzer Lux for 3-4 turns. He didn't want to come at me because that anti-tank rifle was there, and I hadn't even got a shot, but it was just the threat of it being there. So that works out well. I bought a single truck to have enough transport, and then an LVT Buffalo inexperienced. Now, a lot of people question my running of the LVT, and they did so at the tournament as well. I'll just say this: I lost it only once. In one game, it died. Um, in all the other games, it survived. It shot my enemy to bits sometimes, not always, but sometimes. The split fire was useful, but not overpowered. Um, the fact that I had all my units could be transported was at times useful as well. That meant that I only had to make one roll to bring a lot of units on at the same time and then disgorge them into an objective, which I did in my game against Manuel. It worked out really, really well, brilliantly. Um, the hurdle for me was getting all those pintles working, but I have been training to do that, so I knew that I either wanted um, my boys anti-tank rifle or my free Indians to be in the LVT most of the time. Um, it is a big transport, but it wasn't that much of a problem because it's actually not that tall. The model itself is tall, but not much more taller than any other tank. So in many cases, I could get hard cover, or I would simply drive it into area terrain because it's tracked. I could drive into area terrain, and I could be in hard cover there. So that was my list. This is what I think was the most competitive. It did well. There was no like single element of the list that I thought did not perform well. Um, why did I not win all my games? Well, you'll have to see the game recaps for that. But overall, when I did win, I absolutely trounced my opponents. I had 3 games on the second day where I had one opponent that I tabled and 2 opponents that I absolutely trashed, losing very few of my own units and killing almost all of theirs. So this list was designed to do that, and I am, as a player, think I am well suited for that type of play where I aggressively hunt down and kill my enemy's units. Um, and that was what it did. It worked perfectly well. So I think that list-wise, I don't think you could do much better. Um, the rest of the people in the top 10, of course, thought differently and thought their lists were better, and I am going to go back and revisit that top 10 at some point. But for me, this was the top that I could do. This was the best that I could do for list, and I still feel like it performed as I would have expected it to perform. Um, yeah, that was it. I hope you enjoy that. See you next time. Cheers.